Hello, everybody.
Good
Hello.
morning,
Aye, aye.
afternoon, evening.
Good
It's
morning
definitely
or
some
afternoon,
point.
depending on where you're at
Good
Yeah.
evening.
in the
Dankeschön.
world.
Bonjour.
Oh,
All right. So, Z, how are you doing? How are you getting along?
Oh, not too bad, sir. I've been recovering from a cold this week, so I'm a little bit stuffed up.
Uh-oh. Uncle Owen, huh?
Yes, I'm afraid so, sir. He's been at it again.
I
That
don't want to
guy.
know. I don't want to know.
Willie, how you doing?
hello, sir. Good morning. Good evening. Z. Hello. Cruel. Hello. It's
Hello.
like this is kind of like the scene in Spies Like Us. Doctor,
Yeah,
doctor,
doctor.
and doctor.
Doctor.
I'm doing good, by the way. Thanks for asking. I'm gonna mute myself now. Bye, guys.
Cruel, how you doing? How you holding up?
Surviving the winter so far, yes.
Good.
And journeys
Yeah,
to the shops, apparently. So, yeah.
there you go.
It's all good.
I hear that.
We've got Mr.
Uh,
Brown in the chat already. Hello, Mr.
I
Brown.
see that. Yeah, let's. Yeah, Mr.
Bonjour,
Brown.
Monsieur
how's it going?
Brown.
Thanks for being here,
Hello,
Mr.
everyone.
Brown. Yeah,
Namaste.
and then let's see here.
Aha. Aha. Thank you, sir.
Evening, ladies. Yes,
Someone
Yes.
recognizes the
say that with
greatness.
respect. Melvin in the chat.
Melvin, how's it
All right,
going?
Melvin.
Melvin.
And our wonderful friend, the Time Prophet.
Yeah,
Oh, wait.
arrived
He's
just
back.
in
Good
time.
evening.
All hail, the time
All
prophet.
hail, Time Prophet. Hola, amigos. There
Hola,
you go.
pasando, way. See, we're bilingual here too, so you guys didn't know. Mr. Rivera is a bilingual, and if you guys think it's that other thing, yeah, no, it's that I speak
No,
another
it's not.
language. Yeah,
It's bi,
sickos.
but not.
You guys are sick. Anyways, I'll mute myself now. Bye, guys.
Oh, so yeah. So today we're going to be discussing a topic that actually Willie and I had earlier in the week. I was on the phone with him like on Monday or Tuesday, and we just started having a conversation about what I think he's actually the one that brought it up about what makes a sci-fi movie a horror movie, or what makes a horror movie a sci-fi. What elements involved in those movies, horror or sci-fi, that actually make them like a crossover. And
Mhm.
I thought it was quite interesting and a very good topic, because I know there's some movies that have a backdrop of space or something like that are claimed to be a horror movie, and yet they're like space related. Let me pull this up here, and we'll go over the slideshow here. I'm trying to channel my best, Mr. Brown here, sort of. So, what makes a sci-fi movie a horror movie, and vice versa? And here we have just an example I pulled off the internet. Jason X.
Indeed, I've got that. Yeah.
That has the sci-fi vibe because it's based, in the future, space, science
Yeah.
fiction type scene, and yet it's a slasher. So you have a
Well-
slasher character put into a sci-fi background, but it's a horror movie.
Yeah. That's right.
What's your
yeah.
thoughts on that, Z?
Well, they're two separate genres, aren't they, really?
They are, yeah, they are.
Completely separate. It's just every now and again they intersect. I wouldn't class previous Jason movies as sci-fi, but if it contains sci-fi elements, then I would.
Mm.
And vice versa, because horror, its primary objective is to generate fear or repulsion from what you see on screen.
Right.
And if you've got that in a futuristic or scientific setting, then I think that's what makes it classify as both, as opposed to primarily one or the other.
Mhm.
Would
And
you
it's funny
say
because I used to own this movie, and it's actually almost comical.
yeah?
Almost like a bad comedy or something, not the Jason that we, grew up with. You know,
Not so much,
um,
no.
no. Willie, what's your thought? Willie, hurt the Willie.
Yeah.
Yeah, my fucking mic. I got the thing. Anyways, let's get back into this.
You bought a Walmart
Thought you were
mic?
away
What?
again.
What Z said is what I was going to bring up. Like, when you think about horror, the definition itself is the first. I think it's the first letter. It's to instill fear. That's what's the definition of horror. After revisiting this movie, I saw it more like a comedy, like a sci-fi comedy.
Exactly. That's exactly my opinion.
compared to let's just compare it just to the Jason movies. The original one, it instilled fear for that generation. A newer generation might laugh at it, but I think I don't think this one fell into that horror, more into like it was almost sci-fi, like a sci-fi channel movie. Because
it actually was like a sci-fi channel movie.
It really was, and I rather enjoyed it more looking at it as sci-fi than horror. So
yes, same here.
I would classify it, but then again, it had a lot of comedic parts. For example, they reference the sleeping bag scene when Jason is beating her up against the tree. And I think one of the comedic spins they had on it is that he continuously beat the woman, not realizing that he's in a virtual reality room or something. So I think there was a lot more comedic aspects, and I think that started happening after Jason Goes to New York. It had some horror, but then they started throwing a little bit of that. We need to, and I don't understand why they did. Like the boxer, punching Jason, and then at the end, Jason punches him in the face. Or one of the famous scenes when he's walking through Times Square, and the kids tell him, "Hey, fuck off" or something, and he takes off his mask. I'm a big Jason fan, so it's one of the genres I do enjoy. But going back to this,
in the chat has enlightened us with his decades of wisdom. He says, "I think you are overanalyzing. Just watch the movie, and who cares if it's sci-fi or horror?"
well, because we're having a discussion, Time Prophet.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Chill out. Now, there are some movies that people classify as horror, but don't classify it as sci-fi, whereas I would classify it as a sci-fi horror. Take, for example, Frankenstein. I would class that as a sci-fi horror because it's using medical advancements way beyond even current technology.
Right, the original one that they only classified it as a horror.
Yeah,
but
likewise, the Island of Dr. Moreau, I would classify that as a sci-fi horror. But even now, we are at the point where we are doing human-pig hybrids, which was a couple of years ago in China, and it may eventually lose its sci-fi tag and just become a horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the next one. Cloverfield. Anybody watch this movie?
Yes.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I tried to watch this movie and I couldn't freaking understand it because the camera was all jiggly. But basically, yeah, it's I don't know, is it a science fiction, some strange unseen monster or monsters that tearing stuff up and killing people? I mean, or is it a horror movie of a bunch of strange monsters tearing up stuff and killing people? I mean, what is it? Z, what's your thought?
Good question, because I'm not convinced it's not a monster horror movie.
Yeah.
Rather than a sci-fi horror movie.
Right.
I think, again, it's all down to everybody's personal interpretation. People might just say this is just sci-fi, and go down the invasion aspect. But yeah, it's all down to the viewer. For me, it's a monster horror film as opposed to a sci-fi.
Words of wisdom. Bridget Moore in the chat.
Shut up,
How you
time
doing?
prophet.
Bridget Moore in the chat says, The Last Jedi is sci-fi and horror able movie. Just a quick hi and bye. Have fun and catch you on the rerun. Thanks for stopping by, man. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, I
And,
was going to say The Last Jedi certainly is a science
it's a horror
sci-fi
movie.
horror. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That was my question. That was my answer for the question. What makes a sci-fi movie a horror? Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
There you go. That's all you need. Stream over.
Yeah, I mean, some type of films can be both, because you can get zombie flicks, even some classic ones, which are based on Haitian mysticism, which would be classed as a horror. But then you've got other zombie flicks where the zombie is a virus, which is transmitted, which is sci-fi. So you know, it's that crossover that occurs, and who determines?
Well, do you think that sci-fi horror is a separate genre or a splicing of two?
Oh, definitely a splicing of the two.
Yeah, agreed.
It's not a separate one then. Okay.
No, it's splicing.
No.
I suppose people will differentiate on that as well.
Now, there was a sequel to Cloverfield, by the way. I don't know if you guys actually saw the sequel.
Two sequels to Cloverfield, actually, isn't there?
It was, you know,
There's
I enjoyed Cloverfield, but at the time they were doing those, what was those, the Blair Witch style films, you know, camera perspective.
Found footage.
Found footage. And
Not a big fan.
As a fan of like the Godzilla films, I think it was kind of neat that they were trying to go for that. You're looking at the perspective from somebody being attacked from a monster.
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
I also saw it kind of like a monster movie, and I like what they did, but I think it was kind of like an overreach at the time. And you know, I think it's still a good movie, but I mean, that's my 2 cents right there. Everybody had a great day.
So yeah, I pulled this one up, Van Helsing, because I've seen it several times.
I've got it.
And
it's a good film.
You know, and it's, I mean, this particular one anyway, with Hugh Jackman and you know, Kate Beckinsale.
It's a very lovely Kate Beckinsale. It's a very lovely.
Yes,
absolutely.
She is delicious.
So this one here is kind of, I don't know. I know it's based on the horror, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Dracula, the classic Dracula werewolf type stuff. But with all the, like, I guess you would say, technology gadgets that he's implementing in this movie, you know, it's kind of like it's too techy. You know,
it is.
even for their, I mean, granted, there probably was some ingenious people doing, you know, crazy things like that and making a, you know.
Well, he's a bit more like James Bond, isn't he, with the gadgets and stuff? So.
Yeah, in this one, yeah, he definitely is. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Z? Is this a sci-fi or is this a horror movie or is it a horror sci-fi?
It's got sci-fi elements, but I wouldn't class it that. More of a fantasy horror.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
as opposed to a sci-fi horror, even though it's got, you know, Frankenstein's monster in it and the gadgets and everything. That's just a fantasy element as opposed to a scientific element.
Fantasizing over Kate Beckinsale, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, was that just me? Was it?
I don't know what's going on with those pixels, but it looks like she's got her boobs out.
Wait a minute. What was that? See, what about pixels? I didn't hear that. What
on Kate Beckinsale's outfit, it looks like she's got her boobs out.
But what's the problem?
No, none at all.
What's the problem?
I'm just trying to keep the image on screen as long as possible.
Melvin deeply in the chat says, I think horror is in the eye of the beholder. Arachnophobia wasn't remotely scary, but for some people, it's the scariest film ever made.
Arachnophobia was one of the greatest examples of advertising I have ever seen.
Oh my God.
They showed 2 clips in the trailer. I don't know if you guys remember Arachnophobia.
Oh, I do.
They showed 2 clips. One of a bunch of spiders and one of them using a spray can to light the walls. and that was it. And I was sold. You know what I mean?
John
Because-
Goodman's character was
Oh,
funny as hell in that movie.
When I say I've got arachnophobia, I mean I've got the movie, not actual arachnophobia.
Yeah.
So, from what I've been
Uh,
so for my understanding, Van Helsing is an action horror. So,
Yeah, there
Action,
you go. It
sci-fi,
definitely
horror.
had
I don't know.
action in it.
from an inside source, they see movies like these, and we'll talk about that later.
Seems to be a mixed bag,
So-
doesn't it? This one.
Time Prophet in the chat says that Van Helsing was with Stack Shooter is totally unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like a.
So, does it have more sci-fi elements than? Of course, it has more sci-fi than horror elements. I see that.
Mm.
Oh yeah, you've got.
I think it's a sci-fi movie with horror elements, characters that you would find in a horror movie thrown in, because they're not really the.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Melvin Deeply in the chat says, if you're scared of eggs, then Foghorn Leghorn is horror. For vegans, yeah. Wait, Time Prophet here. Not holding back. I don't consider this a horror at all. It's awful.
It is awful, yes.
Oh, come on. When he becomes a werewolf, come on. It's great.
Yeah. So here we have a classic one from back in the 80s.
Kyle MacLachlan.
Yes,
Michael
The
Neary,
Hidden. So
Claudia Christian as well.
yeah, the premise behind this one is that this alien life form, two of them apparently, came to Earth. One was pursuing the other. And so you have a sci-fi element where something came to Earth from another planet or galaxy or wherever, and is jumping from host to host. Quite an interesting movie for its time. What do you think of the Z? What have you think?
I've not actually seen this, so I can't comment on it. So sorry.
They tried to make a TV series out of this too. A few years later, I think it was on the Sci-Fi Channel. It didn't go well. Yeah, this was an interesting movie. But what's he got there? There you go. Nice. Nice.
Brilliant films.
Nice. So, but again, it has an element. Well, it's kind of a horror movie because you got, people getting killed and being killed by the evil or the bad alien, and so you got the good alien trying to track him down and kill him.
Is it not like you see Kyle MacLachlan's alien out with his body, and he's like a light, like a sparkly light, and it's a case of, is it not, if they stay in Earth for too long, they become grotesque, like the slug thing that's in the bad one. So it's something like that.
Yeah, interesting movie. I would consider. I would recommend giving. I would give it a watch. Melvin Deeply in the chat says The Hidden was a sci-fi. I think. I don't think it was trying to be scary.
No. More action, I would say. More action than horror.
It was. Yeah, it could be an action horror or something like that. So, or action sci-fi type of deal. But it's definitely one to put on your list to watch.
Is it kind of like I Come in Peace? Is that kind of how it plays out?
That is one of my guilty pleasures. I absolutely love that film.
I Come in Peace.
Pieces.
Yeah,
I love that. Those
good.
are one of my favorite movies of all. I watched that. I actually watched it yesterday. That's why I brought
it's a
it
good
up.
film.
I love that movie.
It's brilliant.
So does The Hidden kind of play out like that movie? Okay. Oh, a trivia question. What was the other name given to that movie?
What? I Come in Peace.
Yes.
Dark Angel.
Dark Angel.
Yes.
That's what it's called here. I've got that. Yeah, that's the one I have.
I remember it as I Come in Peace. So
Matthias Hughes is the alien
film. Anyways,
brilliant.
Nice. So, Time Prophet in the chat with his words of wisdom. I don't consider Underworld horror because it isn't scary at all.
No, it's more action, sci-fi. I don't know.
And it has
kind of
it has the classic monsters like you have vampires and werewolves. So
And you've got
Um,
Kate Beckinsale again. That's always good. So,
that's a positive.
kind of wish I still had these, to be brutally honest. I did have them, but I don't have them anymore.
Papa Cotton in chat says, "Hey,
Hello.
how's it
Hey,
going, Papa Cotton?
how's it
Welcome.
going?
Hey, Papa
Looks
Cotton.
like we're being
What the heck
invaded
is this?
by."
What the heck
Yeah,
is
I
a
know.
69 mega
I'm-
thing?
Hold on,
I'm
guys.
trying to-
Want to
I'm-
find love?
Who doesn't?
No.
But bug it
No.
off. We're busy.
Somebody wants to find love. Mega.com. Want to find love?
Hang on a second.
Our AI will help you. Oh, wait. Damn it.
I'm trying to get rid of these guys, but apparently,
No, you know you've hit the big
My
time when all these
computer
weirdos show up. and
I
all.
know when they start showing up, but apparently
Yeah.
my system's having an issue for some reason getting rid of them right now. Usually just blocking them will work, but
Well, that's
anyway.
it. They probably come in from mirrored accounts and all that kind of crap. So
Oh, there's no question about that. Yep, they do.
Sorry, guys. The cows are acting up.
Oh no, the cows are acting up.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay. Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay.
We're still here.
they are
Yep.
back.
Let's go up here real quick. Yeah. We're here. We didn't go anywhere. We're still here.
What we're
We're
talking
still
about again?
here.
Aye,
Oh, hey, Mr.
Underworld.
Brown. I saw you in the chat earlier. How's it going, Mr. Brown? Loved it.
Mr. Brown.
Stream last time. You need
I
some.
know. I'm trying to get rid of these guys, Mr. Brown, but apparently it's not working
You ready?
on my end.
All right. Stay calm, sir. We know this is the first time using your Microsoft operating system. Don't be scared. The item to your right is called a mouse. Don't
Yes,
be
I know
scared of
that.
the little
Thank you
cord. It's
very
not going to
much.
bite, sir.
Oh my God.
Right, this one at the bottom there, it's saying it's been blocked for 5 minutes. Does that mean it's coming back after that?
I
Hey.
don't know.
Everybody needs love.
Yeah.
Same.
Too classic. Anyway, yeah, so you've got the Underworld franchise, again, similar to the Van Helsing situation where it's like fantasy or action horror or action sci-fi. What do you think, Z? Is it more
Again, it sits in the fantasy horror section quite firmly. There aren't really any sci-fi elements in this. It's
Well, I know you've got your gadgets and bombs and guns and stuff, I suppose, but
yeah, there's barely any elements of horror in this. So
yeah, I know.
Not a big fan. I have actually seen all of the films, but
same here, yeah.
they're not my favorite.
I would say the first two are really good. Then it kind of, I mean, the Underworld, The Rise of the Lycans there with Michael Sheen and that was not bad. It kind of went downhill after that, as usual, in typical fashion, you know.
So let's see what's on the next slide. Oh, the original
Hey,
Blade.
Hey, Wookie.
Very good film.
Yes.
Hey, so I spoke to Kevin Grebu. You know who that is, right? We talked about this.
Yeah.
All right. So he sees Underworld, his movie, right?
Yeah.
As an action horror.
Action horror. Okay.
That would work, yeah.
So
yeah,
you know, that's what he thinks.
There's definitely a lot of action in that. Yeah.
So it was interesting that I would think he would see a little bit of sci-fi too. Yeah.
No, action horror makes sense. What do we think about Blade, Z?
Well, Blade's another action horror flick.
Action horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think there's many sci-fi elements in this at all.
You could call it a comic book movie as well, obviously, because it's Blade's a comic book as well. So I'm less familiar with the comic books and more familiar with the film Blade. But yeah, it's a brilliant film. Wesley Snipes is amazing in it.
I mean, it's got some gadgets in it, you know, like UV bombs and stuff. But
right.
It doesn't have enough elements to add sci-fi to its genre list.
Well, I mean, you've got the blood god at the end of it, which is kind of more mysticism and historical and legendary and things like that as well. So, which was interesting, I suppose. outdone
Well,
by
they had to
modern
do.
technology.
They had to do the different ending because I mean the original ending to the Blade movie. I
Just
don't
a
know if you
blob,
guys
wasn't it?
saw it. It was
Yeah.
a blob and Deacon
Yeah.
Frost popping his head out every once in a while. You know,
I've seen it, and it's in the deleted scenes, if I remember. Yeah.
correct. And I mean,
Yeah.
the old. I mean, it still had a kind of crappy ending, but I mean, compared to what they were going to do, I mean, Blade is one of my favorite movies. I'm one of those
brilliant.
assholes. I have fucking Blade tattoos, actually. So you know, I actually do. I saw this movie as a young lad, and I was like, well, it's either this or the triple X's on my neck, and I don't want to be a douche. So I decided to do the Blade tattoos. No, great movie, but yeah, I think this falls action sci-fi or action horror.
Action horror,
Yeah,
horror.
definitely.
yeah. That's definitely one of them.
Ooh.
Ooh. Now, John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. So
definitely sci-fi.
yeah, but is it
Definitely.
sci-fi with
Horror.
horror elements? Yeah.
Oh
this
yes.
is- yeah.
Suspense, isn't it? It's really suspenseful.
I think it's
Yeah.
more like a sci-fi suspense thriller with horror elements, but I don't think it to be put horror as its own. I don't know because there's a lot of who's who, and I think that's that thriller part of it. I mean, that scene when everybody's doing the blood work is
Yeah.
one of the most suspenseful scenes in
Yep.
in that movie, you know. And
It
I think a lot of that because the horror elements is just to show the alien. And if you look at it, I believe from a different perspective, from the just a thriller, the horror elements start to go away, and it just becomes part of an alien. You know, the working elements of the alien, and then you find out that it was the dog in the beginning,
Yeah.
and that the helicopter pilots were just warning them. You know, once you have a better understanding of, God, I love that movie. I'm sorry,
Such
Z.
a- it is.
I
It's
love
such
it's
a
such
great
a
film.
great movie. You know,
Yeah.
and Kurt
It
Russell.
is.
I mean, great film. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, it was
Off
a great
mic.
film. It was a great film. Melvin Deeply in the chat says The Thing is sci-fi horror 100%, but it's also a whodunit.
Yeah,
It is. It's kind of
Yeah.
a suspense. It has that element of suspense in it.
exactly.
You
That's
know,
a very good way of putting it. Who done it? Yeah.
yeah. It's definitely a whodunit.
Definition. Yeah.
Then there was the original.
Got that as well. Yeah.
Who, you know, and the monster was played by James Arness, who is famous
Big guy,
for
wasn't he?
playing,
Big guy.
you know,
Mm.
Marshal Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke for 20 years. So, yeah, this one was an interesting. I'd seen this a couple of times.
Yeah, it
in
was
the
more like a
past.
plant-based monster, if I remember.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, it was a plant-based situation. So this could, I mean, is this? But it was from outer space though, because they
Yeah.
did show scenes where they found the ship and everything like that. So, again, now you have the original, and then you have the remake. So the remake, I think, is more of that, you know, like a horror suspense, versus this tended to be more sci-fi, you know, than the remake. What do you guys think? If you've seen the original, I mean,
I've got
I've
them
seen it.
both. Yeah, they're both really good films.
Yeah, they are.
But this one, I would say, is more like a sci-fi horror type thing, as opposed to the suspense and who did it.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and all
it's
that,
more of
because
a.
you know you get a good look at the creature right outright, and it doesn't change shape or nothing, and it just what is it? The only sort of thing is when they cut its hand off and it moves on its own, you know.
Right, and it grew back. So yeah. Those some scary sci-fi horror.
It's the classic black and white version that I have of this. I know they did do a color one, but it's the black and white I've got.
Melvin, deeply, I was thinking about this too, Melvin. When you think about it, The Thing is similar to 10 Little Indians, the Agatha Christie movie. Yeah, it is, because it's a whodunit till the very end. You know,
one of the original posters for this, or one of the book covers, actually asks the audience natural or supernatural, as if to ask that question right off the bat. You know,
in the original one here,
pictured.
Yeah,
is it something which is natural, or is it something supernatural? I still class this as sci-fi elements because the flying
Mhm.
saucer,
Yeah.
the whole story would not take place without this alien life form being present.
Yes.
No,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a good film.
That's
I'm
for
gonna have to
sure.
watch that again.
The
Is that
classic
of
one, but it's actually billed. It says it right here in the bill. It says a horror horde of crawl and crush giants.
Is that like giant ants or something? Is it? I don't
Yeah.
think I've seen
Mhm.
it. Or
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
once, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 The classic. I guess you would say horror movie, but
certainly
they're all
heard of it.
irradiated ants from nuclear, tests in New Mexico.
Right. Okay. So that would
And
be
that's the
sci-fi
premise.
then.
Yeah, it's the premise.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so nuclear testing caused these ants to mutate and become as big as a house, you know.
But then I'd class that as monster, as opposed to
Yeah,
sci-fi.
more of a monster, right? Like a, yeah,
like the
a
Godzilla thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Godzilla or
They're
something like that.
created in the same way by nuclear explosion. It's the
Yeah.
same classification, in my opinion. It's a monster horror movie as opposed to a sci-fi one.
A
But that's
creature
just
feature. Yeah, a creature feature.
Creature, yeah, definitely.
that's
Or
just my
creature.
interpretation of it. I mean, there are some sites, even IMDb lists it as a horror sci-fi, but
Nice. It's more of a
again,
horror creature,
yeah,
like
it's
yeah,
down to the viewer.
yeah, that's true. More of a creature feature.
I think that one's more
Oh.
comparable to like Empire of the Ants too. I mean, it's not horror; it falls under that creature feature kind of style.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and here we have the Swamp Thing from back in the 80s.
That was a good film. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Again, it was science based that turned him into the Swamp Thing, wasn't it? He was a doctor, a professor, or whatever
some
it was.
sort of an accident. Yeah. That. Yeah.
Luis Jordan was the bad guy in that, as I recall. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and then it had a spin-off of a TV show too for a little while, which was quite an interesting thing. I think it ran for at least one season. I think maybe two, but
I don't know. I mean, I've certainly
Um,
seen the second film, Swamp Thing Returns.
oh yeah.
That had Heather Locklear in it, if I remember.
Oh. Yeah, I remember seeing this one though back in the 80s.
Good film, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good film. Time Prophet in the chat says Swamp Thing is a comedy, ain't it?
Well,
The second movie was more on a comedy.
Yeah, more of
The
a comedy.
the first one was more serious, kind of like a sci-fi action, like an action sci-fi, and the second one they went more for like a comedic take on it. You know, it's kind of like the Guyver. You know, if you guys have
I was
seen
waiting to say the
Yeah,
Guyver.
the Guyver.
you
I've
know,
seen that. Yeah,
you know, the first one, Mark Hamill. You know, I think they went more of like closer to the comic adaptation of it. And then when they went to the second one, I think they went full Power Ranger mode. Although it's a great movie on its own, you know, I do enjoy it. But yeah, I think
I like it better.
Swamp Thing kind of sounds a little bit like how they did with Guyver.
Speaking of Guyver, do you know who in the second movie? Do you know who was the Guyver? Solid Snake. There you go.
Was he really?
David Hayter. He was
That's cool.
human form. Solid Snake. There you go.
nice.
I didn't know that for years.
Time Prophet in the chat says I like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
I
was going to use that. I think I thought I pulled that picture up. It might not be on the slideshow, but I don't know. So this is more like what you think? This was like a. What do you think? Is this horror? Fantasy?
It's got sci-fi in it. The creature would not exist without bioengineering, so it is technically sci-fi. But I still prefer to think of it as a creature feature.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
Fair,
that would mean the Guyver is as well, then, kind of, isn't it? So there's creatures in that too, and sci-fi. So.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Similar.
Definitely interesting movie. Now, I've not seen this, but I saw this on.
What the hell?
I saw this and I had to pull it off. You know, I thought it would be fun. Willie might know about this movie. I just saw this and pulled it off.
Oh my goodness! They certainly come up with a bunch of things for shark.
I love this garbage. This is great stuff.
I know, right? I know, right?
Oh, the worse, the better. God, you guys got to see the stuff I watched this week alone.
Oh,
Well, I've not seen
This,
that.
this
So.
I love this stuff. I tell you, I haven't. It's funny because I saw this clip art. I haven't seen this film, but they're all the same. You know what I mean? It's terrible. 99% of the time, you're getting garbage.
I have never heard of this before.
me neither.
It's
I
a
just
first
saw
for me
this
as
and
well.
I figured
Yeah.
I would pull it over. Melvin Deeply in the chat says there was a Marvel Man Thing movie from 2005. The acting was terrible, but the effects were actually pretty good for a low budget deal. Yeah, I've seen the
Okay.
Man Thing in some of the cartoon series, some of the Marvel stuff.
I've never seen Alien Shark. As a matter of fact, I'm writing this one
Yeah.
down. This is going in a pile of garbage.
There you go.
Willie's gonna watch.
Time Prophet in the chat says, "Did you know they only paid the Power Rangers $600 per episode? Imagine that. Did they have to split that, or was it that per person?"
If you'll indulge me for a moment, I have a
Yeah.
review here for you.
Oh.
Off of IMDb, which is
here we go.
For this,
the best movie of 2022. Single-handedly, the greatest movie I have ever watched. This Walmart exclusive had the best acting I've ever laid eyes upon. The story and dialogue was exquisite. The animation is ahead of its time and is so incredibly realistic. There was so much suspense, I was on the edge of my seat for the entire 32-minute duration of the film. I recommend this movie to any lover of sci-fi thrillers and sharks, and I praise the creators of this movie for conducting this absolute masterpiece. My life is complete now, and I will never watch another movie again unless it's Alien Shark 2. Should anyone ever watch this movie, everyone should watch this movie at least once in their life and find complete satisfaction in the film industry again. 1 star out of 10.
How many minutes did they say this thing was? 32?
72.
72.
Oh, I thought you said 32. That's what I said.
Oh, it's a Walmart.
We need to do a watch party for this movie. None of us have seen this. Do you know the kind of fun we could have
It's a
with this
Walmart
movie?
exclusive, so you know it's good.
This is straight to DVD.
Right. Holy crap.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wait. Time Prophet here. He's like, yeah, I think they're jumping the shark. Yeah. You know. And Time Prophet again in the chat says, "Do not watch No Shark and no boat in the whole movie. Worst movie I ever saw." Says you.
We spoke about that, didn't we? Weeks and weeks ago, I think we spoke.
Yeah. He also says ZeeThreepio wrote that in a review. Hello. It was one hell of a review. Papa Cotton in the chat says Sharknado was fun.
I've never seen any of them.
I've never seen any of those either. But
bits and bobs. I've seen bits and bobs, but
yeah, not seen any of those. Wait a minute. What is this? Melvin Deeply says, at the Time Prophet, Clint Eastwood was in Revenge of the Creature. It was his first film. What?
I've heard of it. So I've not seen
Revenge
it.
of the Creature.
I've heard of it. I've not seen it though.
What? Kathleen Kennedy? What?
Ah!
The Creature. Oh my God. What the heck? Wait a minute.
Zombie.
Oh, and he just watch Zombievers classic. What?
Great movie. Zombievers is awesome.
Zombievers? When was that? When was that produced?
Oh, Zombievers is good. That reminds me of the turkey
Wait.
zombie one.
Hang on a second.
Turkey zombies.
Cam,
Hey, all right.
you there, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Sorry, man.
Hello.
I hope you weren't waiting long.
No. I just blinked in. I just got my power back, and
Oh, good.
all I saw was Alien Shark, and I was like, Jesus, I got to pop on here. This might be the greatest movie I've never seen.
It's a Walmart exclusive.
I
too.
just watched the trailer to this movie. It is incredible.
What?
My goodness. Hey, Cam, ¿qué pasa, homie?
Hey, it's good to see you guys, man. How's everyone?
Life is good,
Fine,
sir.
thank
Good.
you.
We're doing well.
Good, good.
For now, until you go see the
well.
trailer for this movie.
Oh,
I've got a bad
the,
feeling about this.
Like I said,
the first thing I do when I get off here is watch the trailer for this and try to figure out how I can watch this incredible cinematic experience.
Can I
oh,
finish
man.
watching
I tell you
Lethal
what,
Weapon 2
like I
first?
said, I only saw this on Google when I was just researching, sci-fi. I typed in actually on this one. I typed in classic sci-fi, and this popped up.
So what year did,
It was one of the listings, and I'm like, "Well, I've never heard of this. I'll pull. It looks interesting, so yeah, I'll just
what year did it come out?
copy it."
Hey, pull up the trailer, Wookie. Can't you pull it up?
No, I don't want to.
What year? Do you know what
What?
year this film
Come
came out?
on.
No.
I can't pull up the trailer on this.
God damn it.
Hang on. Whatever. Okay.
Batman
Oh,
shark
shit.
repellents.
I like this movie. Good movie.
Oh,
Okay.
the Forbidden Planet, classic.
Brilliant,
Just
brilliant.
Classic sci-fi.
everything about it is good for a B movie. What was the guy's name? Ed Wood, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he have something to do with this?
I'm not sure.
Wasn't this one of his projects? The
I
king,
don't
the
know.
king of the B movies.
I don't know. But this one, the Forbidden Planet, I mean, it had, Walter Pidgeon in it and Francis. And then it's, Leslie Nielsen, of course, featuring Robbie the Robot, which has become a cult classic. The thing is with this
Right.
one here, and I've seen this movie about a dozen times. And, it is, as the poster suggests, it's an amazing movie for its time, sci-fi based, but it's got a creature in it. It's got a creature that you can't see, but it's killing people.
Yeah.
Well, it's a creature of the id. It's
Yes.
a manifestation
Mind.
of the guy. And the story is actually an adaptation of The Tempest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a crazy movie, but it's good. But it's got
Yeah.
that creature, and
Don't they put the laser fence up, and that's how you kind
Yeah,
of see it? Or something
yeah,
like that?
exactly. That's the only
Yeah.
time you're able
Yeah.
to see a physical manifestation outside of its footprints.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, Z, what do you think of this movie?
It's got horror elements, but I would just put it as sci-fi because it's the
Mhm.
technology that manifests the subconsciousness.
Right.
There is no outside influence or supernatural elements. It's 100% technology based, but yeah, you can add the horror tag to it if you wish. But for me, this is a solid sci-fi.
Well,
Yeah,
I was going to say
solid sci-fi
it's a
movie.
is it a manifestation of his subconscious or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which I
Mhm.
suppose could have easily taken place on Earth at some point as well. I mean, you could
Yep.
use that in any sort of setting, I guess.
Right.
So that
Yeah,
would be horror. That would be horror. That would be the horror element, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'd have to agree, though. It's mainly a sci-fi movie with some horror element thrown in with the monster, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's basically a sci-fi movie,
Mm.
Oh, Time Prophet in the chat with words of wisdom. Why would Batman make shark repellent that doesn't work underwater?
Oh my goodness! I'm trying to imagine somebody testing this shark repellent out. Stick your leg in the water. Go on.
Papa Cotton in the chat says Black Sheep is a movie about killer sheep. Really? Really?
I've seen that.
And not the Farley movie.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
Not Black. Yeah, I've seen that one too. Time Prophet in the chat says check out Bad Taste, which is Peter Jackson's first movie, and it won a 1988 Cannes Film Festival. It has nothing from zombies, It has everything from zombies to exploding sheep.
Good movie.
I've not seen it. I've got his other one, Brain Dead or Dead Alive, whichever way you call it.
It
But
says the idea is kind of supernatural, though. And he also says Forbidden Planet was based on The Tempest by Shakespeare. Yes.
But black
Yeah.
sheep, huh? Wait, exploding sheep and zombies?
Yeah.
How can you go wrong with those two things?
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen it.
And- yeah. Melvin Deeply in the chat says, I think Forbidden Planet was sci-fi, but was dark, not horror. Unbelievably good for its time. Yeah, it definitely was good for its time to the sci-fi classic. It really is.
Aye.
Aye. But now we have another sci-fi classic.
I love it. I love it.
The original War of the Worlds. I've seen this a couple times too. What do you think, Cam? Is it sci-fi horror or sci-fi or creature feature, or what do you think?
Great movie. Based on H.G. Wells' book. But definitely sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a lot of horror elements in it. I mean, it's more of the creature from outer space, sci-fi encounter with humans. They come because they want to take over our world because I guess their world's dying or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say pure sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say the same on that as well. It's like exactly the same as Independence Day. It's just alien invasion, pure sci-fi. Yeah, they look different from us, but that doesn't really give it a horror classification.
Right.
Yeah, science fiction. It's just one of them classic ones.
What would you guys consider then Alien Nation, the series and the show? Because now you got to think about what happened in that series. They didn't invade.
I remember the movie. Yeah,
they were refugees, correct? So what does that fall under?
Sci-fi drama.
Alien Nation.
You know what? He's okay.
It was sci-fi drama. Yeah. Alien Nation, and the TV series was definitely drama.
So like V's about the same thing also. Like the series V would be like a sci-fi
drama. Yeah, it was more of an invasionary type force.
Definitely.
It was kind of a suspenseful thing because they were really trying to hide the true form. So I mean, but yeah, sci-fi. I don't know how you classify that one. I know it's sci-fi, but not horror. Probably like what, sci-fi fantasy, maybe.
No,
I would just leave it as sci-fi. For me.
Let's see if I can get this working here. See if you can hear this. There you go. I don't know if it'll work. Like I was using this as a notification tone for a while. It ever gets on today.
Now I know I came in late. I'm sure you guys have already discussed the classic the thing from outer space, the original thing.
Yeah.
Now, did you discuss that one already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And I think that would be your classic horror sci-fi movie because it's got the horror elements of the monster and the and the killings and everything, but it's an alien that has crash landed on our planet and thawed out, and so and again another Leslie Nielsen is in that one as well, isn't he?
What's that one?
Oh, the original. I don't know. It has been a while since I've seen that one. The original. I know that the creature is played by James Arness. He plays the creature in that. but I
Right. The guy from Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great movie,
Yeah,
by the
it
way.
was. Yeah, Time Prophet in the chat says Alien Nation was also horror. The aliens would transform into a monster if they took a special drug. Well, didn't water do something to them too? Wasn't like regular water?
I can't remember if it was salt water or if it was regular
Did
water.
something to them? Yeah, something.
Was it Leslie Nielsen was in Forbidden Planet? He was
Yeah, he
Commander
was
John J.
yeah.
Adams.
Yeah, he was definitely in that.
Yeah.
The only other sci-fi film I know
Dark
he was in was Naked Space, and that's a spoof of like Alien and stuff like that. He's one of the, he's in that.
Yeah. Melvin Deeply in the chat says, I think War of the Worlds, the book, could have been a horror had they made more of the Martians eating people. Yeah. That probably would have worked.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if they're strip mining the planet, they could strip mine us for minerals.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They could have made a lot about that, just reducing us down to component parts for building new war machines.
Yep. Pretty much.
That would have been a much more heavier horror element to that movie.
Yes, it would. Time Prophet in the chat also says Cam would like Maximum Overdrive.
Yes.
It has science fiction, good music by AC/DC, and some terrible car crashes. LOL.
Hey, do you think the movie Trucks was better or Maximum Overdrive?
I'd have to watch
Maximum
Trucks.
Overdrive.
Or watch
Maximum
it again.
Overdrive. Trucks is
Yeah.
damn it. I got a weird thing about the movie Trucks because it feels like it was. I think it came first, and then Maximum Overdrive came.
I'm not sure.
God,
I've probably seen it.
I'll have
I've
to check
definitely
that one
got
out.
Maximum Overdrive though.
Yeah, that was a crazy movie. Didn't it involve like a comet or an asteroid going by and
Yeah.
did something to the.
I think it was
vehicle?
based on a short story from Stephen King, and when they actually wrote it and did it, because he actually does the ATM scene in the beginning of the movie, and he says, "This machine just called me an asshole." That's
That's
the
right,
line he
yeah.
says on the scene.
He
And
does. Yeah.
it was a green comet that circled the Earth, and it was circling for 7 days.
Yeah.
And all they had to do was survive 7 days. But yeah, Trucks was kind of like the same premise of like, in the same way of like The Car and those kind of movies.
Yeah, The Car was a good movie.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
good.
a good movie. Crazy movie.
What's that? There was an alien spoof called Spaceship with Patrick O'Neill. If it's the "I'm going to eat your face" thing, that's Naked Space. So, I'm going to eat your face. Brilliant.
Now he's singing. Oh man. Here we go.
So Melvin Deeply in the chat says Bright is like a remake of Alien Nation, but with orcs instead of aliens. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Like all the fantasy characters, and they have like orcs and freaking fairies and wizards.
Yeah,
and stuff like
they just
that.
dropped out the sci-fi and inserted fantasy.
Yeah. That's
And Will Smith. And they called it a day.
Whatever. Time Prophet said, yeah, water burned the aliens in Alien Nation.
It was salt water. It was salt water.
Yeah.
Was it salt water or was it normal water?
It was salt water specifically. They couldn't be in salt water.
Yeah. Melvin Deeply said there was an alien spoof called Spaceship with Patrick McNee. It was awful.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick McNee was in the spoof with Leslie Nielsen, so it could be the same one.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Papa Cotton says Trucks was the short story Maximum Overdrive by Stephen King.
Okay.
So, Time Prophet says that Cash Machine really knew Stephen King well. Oh, that's funny. Let's see. What else do we have? Is there any more? Oh, yes!
I have not seen any of them.
You know, Z's a big fan of Warwick.
I have never seen this film.
I think if my memory serves me correctly, this is actually the only Leprechaun movie I ever did see, and I only saw parts of it.
Yeah, I mean they did
And
that.
what
with
I
Critters.
thought of it was was awful. And there were more made after this one too. So apparently he needed the money.
I've heard that, yeah, I mean I've never seen it.
War-
I've seen bits of the first one, but I've not seen them.
Warwick
Not seen-
Davis, he needed the money.
So just like Critters, I have seen every single one of these films.
Oh no.
Every
I've
single
only
one of
got two.
them.
I've only got two of the
Leprechaun.
Critters. So.
They are
Well, I was about to say I'm ashamed to say I've seen this movie, but after hearing that, I'm no longer ashamed.
I'm no shame, my friend. Listen, I've watched them multiple times. I like Critters, like I said. Yeah.
Critters is good though. I mean that.
Well, there's no shame in your game, my friend. No shame in your game.
You know what? If you're gonna watch one Leprechaun, I would suggest Leprechaun in the Hood. It just it narrows down all the movies in this series.
Oh my
I'm
God.
serious. It's just
I'm just like, this is like Jason X. It's like, well, okay, how the hell did he get up in space? And who cares? And all this stupidness. And then there's, I don't even know. It's like, well, how would you classify this movie? It's supposed to be a horror movie because he's supposed to be
Shit.
killing people. No?
I don't think there's
There's
shit.
not a modern classification for it outside of
This is what your grandparents get their grandkids thinking that it's like some Marvel movie. They think it's like Green Hornet because their fucking vision is going. Turns out they get their kid Leprechaun in space. Thanks, Mima. I wanted something for my phone. You get me fucking Leprechaun 4. Thanks, Mima. Hey,
My
fucking
prophet
ass.
in the chat says there are 6 Leprechaun movies, and Warwick isn't in the last one. Well,
All right.
really? Oh wait,
Because everybody really cared about him being in the first 4. I'm telling you. Holy shit.
it's cultural appropriation as Warwick isn't even Irish. What? Well, you know, he jumped at the chance to do this Willow series that's
Stop.
crap.
I
I
don't
mean,
talk about Willow.
you know,
I'm very pissed off still about Willow. So fucking
you can't classify a movie as horror if you laugh through the whole thing. Yeah, this one was crazy because what's up with that freaking guy that was like the robot, like half, you know, and he's wearing the freaking ball gag or some crazy crap when the leprechaun takes him out. Like, what the hell is with that?
What copy did you get?
Oh, I don't know. I saw pictures for it when I was looking. I dug this up. You know,
It's
crazy.
listed as a science fiction black comedy slasher film.
Oh God. Here we go.
Shit, that's right. It's shit.
But the main character is a fantasy character.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a make-believe character.
Yeah, I'm not
What
seeing
would you
it.
call it?
so-
Fantasy, mythological? I don't know. Yeah.
You probably Z, I don't think you're missing much.
No, I must have missed this when it was in the bargain bin at my local garage.
Well,
I'd like to see
the next time you're in a charity shop and you see this in the bin, just don't even bother.
I will pay
my
them to
God.
keep it in the bin.
I was going to say, even if they're charging you 2p, it's 2p too much.
God.
Well,
I wonder if Lost Chord would
inflation.
consider doing reviews on this series of fine movies.
You know, I talk.
What?
There you go.
You there? Oh, he's muted.
Has he pinged off?
No, I don't know.
Oh no, I'm good, guys. I'm good. I had to.
Oh,
I had
lost
to.
you then.
What happened was I clicked the mute and my mouse battery went dead. Right, And I had one of those movie moments, had to change it out real quick. You guys were panicking, thinking I was dead or shot. No, I'm still here.
The leprechaun got him.
No, what I was going to say, we're talking about like weird movies. I don't know. I watched this movie this week getting into this stream, and I told Wookie about this. Have you guys ever heard of a movie called The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires?
No.
Yeah.
It's a Hammer horror film.
So this was a British and I believe it was Japanese collab with Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. And it goes along the role of like 7 samurai. The guy has 7 sons, and they need to fight the 7 golden vampires. And these vampires live in a village, and it has like an army of darkness. It has kung fu. It has horror. It has gore. Like if you guys have an opportunity, check that film out. I mean, it's a Shaw Brothers movie, so it's going to have all those like zoom in elements, and pretty good film. Got it.
Hey, I'm going to mute myself for a second. I got to feed the cat. I'll be right back.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Fine. We like to hear the cats.
Yep. Melvin Deeply in the chat says, Googled it. Spaceship and Naked Space is the same movie, but it's on IMDb as the creature wasn't nice. It's still awful.
Right. What we're talking about? The
oh god. So yeah, the was that a Hammer horror film? What do you got there? Is that it?
Yeah.
No.
Legend
Hang on
of
a
the
second.
Seven Golden.
Oh, hold that thought for a second. They're Cruel.
Yeah, that movie's
the 7
great.
golden vampires. Oh my god.
It's the last one in the Dracula series of the Hammer horror films.
Nice.
That's such a good movie.
Which
When did they come out with that?
Oh, it was like
1973 or 74.
74. It's saying in the back of it there.
Yeah, 1974.
Yeah, they do the vampires slightly different too as well. They're not quite the same, and Peter Cushing explains all that. It's quite interesting how they do that.
Well, a Shaolin monk ends up going to Transylvania to speak with Dracula, and Dracula ends up sacrificing the Shaolin monk and taking over his body.
Pretty much,
So he can go to this village where there was actually 8 vampires, if I remember correctly. Then one villager was able to successfully kill one of the vampires, and then it now goes into the future where Peter Cushing as Van Helsing is doing a lecture of how there's of the legend of these vampires. Like, it's a really good movie,
They defined it as kind of like the Hammer horror meets the kind of like the kung fu.
Yeah, Shaw Brothers.
Yeah. So it's worth a
yeah,
watch.
with the 70s, kung fu craze, which I got to take part in as a young tyke. Probably saw movies that I was probably a little too young for, but you used to go to the drive-in and you could see 3 or 4 movies at a time. So my dad died young, and my uncles kind of took his place, and they were only about 7 to 9 years older than me. So they took me to a lot of movies that, I wouldn't have otherwise gotten to see. And like the kung fu craze of the 70s was just something special. And I've never heard of this movie, but I tell you what, I'm definitely going to watch it on your guys' recommendation because it sounds great.
Well, it's a Hammer. I guess it's the collab with Hammer too. So it's got Cushing in it. So if you like the Hammer horror stuff, this is would be right up your alley. I haven't seen it, but I think I might.
The previous movie in the Dracula series, The Satanic Rites of Dracula, was the last one to feature Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing together. So it's a different actor playing Dracula in this one.
Mm-hmm.
But Peter Cushing does return as Van Helsing.
What a great combination those guys were together. I really have a lot of respect for Peter Cushing. I think he was a great underrated actor. Because he played some of the B movies. I guess because when you're an actor, you take what jobs you can because you never know when you're going to work again. And He made some great movies. Like he turned some real crap into some good stuff.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Well,
You
that's
know?
it.
And if I'm not wrong, he was a classically trained, you know, like most English actors, he was a classically trained, you know, Shakespearean actor.
Most of them were in his day, I suppose. And Christopher
Well,
Lee, you know,
and I think that's why, you know, British actors, and even to this day, you know, they talk about, you know, how British actors are better actors because they have that classical training in mostly Shakespeare and the other classics, but you know, mainly based on Shakespeare. That really gives them a foundation to be good in almost any role, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's
yeah.
it. I mean, a lot of them cared about the craft as well. It's not just
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, they had work ethic about caring about the craft. And there's a very good interview with Christopher Lee on that.
I mean, Christopher Lee was just on another level. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, you know, everyone knows the story how he worked for Special Operation Executive, which SOE during World War II, which you know was our OSS, which we based the American OSS on, you know, and there's everyone knows the famous quote, you know, in Peter Jackson, he was like, no, when someone gets stabbed, they don't scream like that. They sigh and make a sound, and Jackson looked at him and he was like, I wanted to ask him how he knew, but I was afraid to.
Yeah, I remember hearing that story about he corrected him in that scene, and it's like pretty telling. But you know, he spoke German fluently, and I think he could probably read and write it as well, and
he
several
knew
other languages.
Multiple languages, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did. Well, like in the movie, the cult classic now, but it was back then. It was a B movie. Was the 1941 with John Belushi and Toshiro Mifune.
I've not seen it.
Oh, and he spoke nothing but German in that movie, the whole movie. You know, and he you know, to be a good actor, you have to study mannerisms, inflections, things like that, especially in languages, but just how you go about doing things. So his, I guess, perceived natural ability for doing all those things may have been honed when he was in World War II.
Possibly,
you know,
because he was liaison with a lot of folks, so I do believe so.
You know, acting can be, you know, it's all it is pretending that you're something that you're not, you know, or pretending that you're a certain character, and how best to have that background actually doing it in real life. You know, again, it's all speculation. It's all speculation because you know, he never, you know, he would give you hints.
That's the problem with a lot of actors is they don't have enough life experience to draw upon in order to embody the characters they play a lot of times. You know, like they just don't have that experience, you know, and to draw upon. Whereas a lot of these other actors, you know, guys who have actually had experience, done things in their lives, they can, you know, draw upon those experiences in order to achieve, you know, an embodiment of the role. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's not that like method acting either. You know, where they go deep dive into the character. It's just they've got an innate natural ability to be able to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. And Time Prophet.
Well, I heard a joke the other day about something about it was Daniel Day-Lewis, and they're, you know, he's a method actor, and they were talking about how if he was going to be an avatar, he would have to go into space, find a blue planet, and live there for a while, you know.
Yeah.
And then come back in order to play a role, you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, it, like they call it acting for a reason. You're playing someone that you're not, you know. You draw on your own life experience to emote and to get into a role, but you can't live every role, you know. I mean, Brando wasn't a godfather for, you know, a year before he decided to make that movie, you know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Time Prophet in the chat says that Christopher Lee also sung with a heavy metal band. It's on YouTube. Yeah, I know. I think they actually won some freaking awards and shit too with his singing. And then of course the Time Prophet in the chat has to be racist. The British are better at everything, though.
He is right. He is right.
But when he says British, what he really means is Scots.
Oh.
No, he means British. Don't make me come over there and colonize you.
Time Prophet in the chat says, when someone crashes, they don't scream like that, Cam. Just say, oh no, not again. Oh.
Time Prophet. God bless you.
Yeah.
You're never going to let that go, are you?
I know, right? And Time Prophet also in the chat says, actually, my mom used to laugh through Christopher Lee Dracula movies. She used to find them funny. There you go. There you go. Oh my God.
You know what? His mom sounds like a fun lady.
So Papa Cotton in the chat says that since we're talking comedy horror, anyone mention Shaun of the Dead yet?
No, that's because we're talking about sci-fi horror.
Yeah, I
now, wasn't like Shaun of the Dead was
Shaun of the Dead is a comedy.
It was a comedy with
zombies.
Yeah,
that's all it is. It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. It didn't really have any gore or horror, I don't think. What do you think, Z?
No, it's comedy horror.
Yeah.
Really do enjoy that. We should do comedy horrors another day.
It was a fun movie. There's no question.
I was going to say, I think we can all agree that that's a really good movie. I mean, I laughed from beginning to end with that movie.
Right.
But speaking about how about Hot Fuzz? That has some horror elements to it.
It does?
Yeah, I suppose so.
I've not seen it though. I mean, I don't know.
It's a
comedy movie.
It's got Timothy Dalton in it. It's quite funny, and Edward Woodward as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, just a wee role. Edward Woodward. There's a few folk like that.
I know it's got the same two guys that were in Hot Fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It's got the same two guys from Shaun of the Dead. Yeah. They did Hot Fuzz as well, but I think that has more horror elements, you know, than you know. I mean, it's comedy, but it's more of a horror comedy, whereas Shaun of the Dead is a comedy horror, if that makes sense. One's funnier than the other. One has more horror elements than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Star, according to the Time Prophet, Dark Star was John Carpenter movie with a scary inflatable orange chasing them around the ship. What the hell?
I've not seen it, but I've heard of that.
Well, and did you guys talk about the original The Blob?
No, I
We haven't talked
didn't.
about the new one either.
The Steve McQueen blob, great movie.
Yeah.
I've not
Yeah,
seen
that's
it.
a great horror movie.
He's the most unconvincing
It's sci-fi.
teenager ever.
I know.
Yeah.
Me and my wife watched that movie, and we're watching him make out in that first scene, and I was like, ugh. You know, it wasn't. You're absolutely right. It wasn't believable. Oh.
Oh
Well,
my God.
I think he probably had to shave twice a day just to keep
Yeah.
those boys' good looks going.
Yeah, I hear you.
I
When was that
actually
made?
enjoyed
Was
the
that made
remake,
in
though.
that was made in the late
1955.
55? Yeah.
1955 was that one, if I remember. The 85, 86 version I enjoyed also.
Yeah,
Not
I've
very
got that
popular,
one.
but I
I've
liked
got
it.
that, yeah. Got that one.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that.
I crashed my
version.
motorcycle trying that in a sewer one time. I tried to recreate that. It wasn't very smart. So if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, if only there was videotape of that.
It was on the Triumph that he did that on. Which I love Triumphs. I actually have a nice Triumph, but great movie.
Oh, nice. Triumph. What a great bike, man.
It's the only good thing no comment. No comment. We got a couple of those in the chat, and no comment.
Yeah, Time Prop in the chat says it was John Carpenter's first movie starring Dan O'Banion, and without Dark Star, Alien would not exist. Dan O'Banion wrote the script for Alien.
That's right. Yeah,
Which one is he talking about? Which John Carpenter? Am I missing something?
Dark Star.
Dark Star, then? Okay.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
What the heck?
Yeah, speaking of space, have you guys heard about the new Avatar movie? I heard it's getting real good reviews.
I haven't watched any, but
I have
apparently
not seen
it's about no. I've got the first one, but yeah.
No, I watched the first one at the cinema, mostly for the 3D effects. So I'll go and see this the second one at the cinema as well. But I'm not in a rush. The first one was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, it was Dances with Wolves in Space, or some,
Yeah, that's space.
I've also heard it referred to as Fern Gully in space, but I've never seen Fern Gully, so I wouldn't know.
I don't think I have either, actually.
No.
Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, kid movie. It's not that bad, but it's a Disney kind of style movie. I got watched a lot of movies tonight. Sorry.
Yeah,
so I'm in no rush to see this new Avatar movie because it seems like a retread of the first movie, just with water this time.
Right.
And the main thing that I've heard is that the production costs so much money that in order to just make their money back to break even, it's got to make $2 billion.
Yeah.
Like that's more money than any movie's ever made ever.
Yeah, exactly. So in the chat we have someone new in the chat, Acentric in the chat. Thanks, man, for coming by. And he says we'll have to go with Satan and Demons, because that's one of the listing here where it says recap and thoughts, space backdrop, aliens, creepy monsters from a lab, Satan and Demons. What the difference between horror, sci-fi, or what makes a sci-fi movie a horror and vice versa. So we've got, hang on a second, jumping around.
I mean, are there any movies of Satan in space?
Probably.
Well, we've had Jason and Leprechaun, so
Well, the critters came from space, so they were in space anyway. So.
Right.
Eccentric says, "Hey, all, thanks. Oh, you're welcome, man. Thanks for coming by. I really appreciate you being in the chat."
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming up.
I was trying to think. There was that one, Dracula 3000. That was in space as well.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Melvin Deeply in the chat says, "I was going to go watch Avatar 2 tonight, but I'll wait a few days to avoid the crowds. Really enjoyed the first one. I don't understand the negativity it It was a great film. It was good film. The second one, I saw that one. That was a good film, I thought. It was, of course, it's the thing is it science fiction? Is it fantasy? Because it's not really horror, but it's it's definitely science. It has that science fiction vibe because it's a place out in space, in the future, So, what do you think, Z?
Well, I think to qualify for sci-fi horror, it's got to primarily have both as prevalent in the storyline. So you can have stories in space that don't have any horror elements. You can have aliens in space without any horror elements, but it's actually got to generate the fear and the disgust and the nausea
Right.
from that kind of environment to actually qualify as both.
Yeah.
So
Alien would be a good
things like aliens,
Alien,
species,
yes,
Extro.
Wow,
Yeah, I love that film. But yeah, all of those will classify as sci-fi horror, but you're going to get things like Star Wars, which has got aliens in it, but it's a sci-fi fantasy.
Sci-fi fantasy, yeah.
So on and so forth. But yeah, if it's got any supernatural elements, then I don't really consider it a sci-fi horror. It's more of a supernatural sci-fi.
Life Force. Sorry, I just got a Life Force.
Life Force.
Another classic.
Sorry, go ahead.
And that was all I was going to say. Life Force. I just thought of it.
And I was just in a discussion about this the other day, and that's definitely a sci-fi horror film because they're life force vampires. You know what I mean? So it's got that horror element, and when the main character realizes that the chick has taken over the body of Captain Picard. What the hell is his name?
Yeah, Patrick Stewart. Yeah,
Patrick Stewart. It also has probably the first gay kiss ever in film.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just a very brief one. Yeah, but yeah, it's there.
You know, when he realizes it's the woman inside, he's like, next thing you know, they're sucking face, and she's sucking the life force out of him, and just an interesting side note, but definitely a sci-fi horror right there.
So, Time Prophet in the chat says that there was a Satan character in the Quartermass Experiment. I believe that's a movie. But it just dawned on me when I read that one movie I totally forgot to look up was Time Bandits.
Oh,
Time Bandits it's sci-fi because they're traveling through time on a ship.
But
it's also got elements of it has basically the devil's in it.
Pretty much,
right? So it's like God versus the devil, and then you got the team of the Time Bandits, jumping around.
Well, the little guys are like God's architects. You know, God says, "Hey, this is what I want to see," and and they went out and made it. And like I remember one of them has a line, and he's like, "Yeah, the so and so, yeah, that was me. I did that, not God. It was me."
It wasn't Kenny Baker, was it?
He was in it though.
Well, he was in it,
It's kind of like a Slarta Blart class, when he's talking about fjords, and he's like, "Oh, fjords, those are me. I made those."
Nice. Time Prophet in the chat says, if it has science and is made up, it is always science fiction. Imagine that.
So the only movie I know of that has Satan in space is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
Who's in that again? Is that Scott Bakula that's in that? Because if it is, I think I've seen that.
Victor Wan, Jamison Parkin, and Lisa Blount. Well, the movie was a trilogy, and just a quick little plot of it. It's Satan from space. Like literally, it's Satan from space. You guys might want to check out that film. Pretty interesting.
Nice.
It's called Prince of Darkness. It's one of John Carpenter's.
Okay.
Star Wars. According to Time Prophet, he says Star Wars is science fiction. It's written on my 1977 book. Yes,
must be true then.
Yeah, well, and in the book he also has a dog, so we're apples and oranges, kind of.
Wait, what does he say here? He says also says that I have the original book Life Force was based on. It was called The Space Vampires by Colin Wilson.
Yeah.
And
That's what I believe.
he says that the Time Bandits is a horror, has horror also. Does it?
Yeah.
I say Time Bandits is more like a sci-fi fantasy. There's too many
I
fantasy
thought it was
elements.
a sci-fi fantasy in there, but I don't know about the horror aspect of it.
I mean, he is played like, kind of like a little state.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Eccentric in
Alice
the chat
Cooper.
says Alice Cooper as an evil homeless guy in Prince of Darkness.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that then.
I haven't seen that.
Heard of it. I've certainly heard of it, but I don't think I've seen it. I'm sure.
Yeah, I haven't.
Sure, there was a film
I
with Scott Bakula that was a horror movie, but I don't know.
I didn't get to meet Alice Cooper though. When I was living out your way, Wookie, when I used to live in Tempe, Arizona, I lived there twice actually for about almost 2 years, and I'm he owns a restaurant and bar there, but I never saw him in there. I was actually out on the golf course, and these guys wanted to play through, and I was like, sure, man, come on up. And we're about to tee off. I'm like, yeah, sure. You guys are playing a little bit faster than us, And you guys look like you're pretty good. I've been watching you play behind us and play on through. And when they get ready to tee off, I realize that, holy shit, the guy is Alice Cooper, and he knocks the shit out of the ball. And I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, Alice Cooper, you're an awesome golf player. You know what I mean? I was shocked that, this hard rocker was like spending his spending his downtime playing golf.
Oh yeah, I literally ran into him at a PGA golf convention in San Diego back in, good grief, 1990. It was the mid 90s. When in my other life, I was a golf instructor and assistant golf pro in San Diego. So I ran into him. I literally backed into him as he was walking by. And I'm not a tall guy, and he is short.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But he's the nicest guy. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. And then I realized who the hell it was. And I'm like, and then he's like, oh, that's okay, cool, man, blah blah blah, and he just took off, and then I realized, oh yeah, he's over at the freaking Callaway booth because he was, he's part of their Callaway advertisement team, that's who he's
okay.
Yeah, he was at the Callaway thing, and I had heard that someone said he was there at the Callaway booth, and sure enough, yeah, I literally ran into him, backed it right into him as he's walking by. And nice guy though, very gracious, and I apologized, and he was very, very nice and everything, and so yeah, it was fun. I was shocked at how short he was.
Right. I mean, I'm not a tall guy either, but he's even shorter than I am. I'm about 5'10", and I mean,
he's shorter than what I thought. Yeah.
He wasn't even as tall as I was.
He was a good guy. He was a nice guy and everything, and super
nice guy. and just out of curiosity, like I used to live out in Mission Valley in San Diego. Were you anywhere around there?
I worked at the Whispering Palms Country Club in Rancho Santa Fe. I worked at Carmel Mountain Ranch in Carmel Mountain, and and then I moved up to Riverside. I was at a couple clubs up there. My last club was at Canyon Lake over by Lake Elsinore, southern Riverside County. Yeah.
Yeah. Not super familiar, but yeah, I know where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to turn this into the old
golf hour. Yeah. No, that's cool. So, Time Prophet in the chat says Alice Cooper plays Freddy's dad in one movie.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Plays Freddy Krueger's dad, huh?
Yeah.
Forget
which one though. Forget which one, but he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of stopped watching the Freddy movies. I actually saw the first one in the theater. My mom took me, and I'm not sure what she was expecting, but I was young, obviously, when that movie came out. And when he's walking down the alley and his arms stretch out and scraping across, each side of the alley. Holy shit, did that scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean,
I've never seen anything like that. I mean, the first one was a horror classic.
Oh yeah.
Does it have sci-fi elements to it though?
I don't know. The only thing is, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you could call it sci-fi, but it's definitely horror fantasy. I would think it's horror fantasy.
He was starring in V at the time, so I guess it's sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in V for series. Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to get back to V for a second, just because it's definitely sci-fi fantasy, but I think where the horror element comes in is when it turns out that they're actually faking being, humanoid, and you find out they're lizards, and they're really here not to help humanity, but to harvest humanity.
Pretty much, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, does that make that horror? A sci-fi horror movie? The original miniseries,
Yeah, no, it could be. I don't know. What do you think, Z?
No, I think it could be with taking that into account, but because it's like what we were saying about War of the Worlds earlier. If they'd actually been harvesting humans, it would have been a lot more horror based. V does that, but it's a very small element of the plot. I mean, once you get over the physiological changes of their true form, that's kind of the horror element gone.
Yeah. Well, what about that movie that had Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford in it? Was it Cowboys versus Aliens?
I've seen bits of it. It was all right.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was a good movie, but okay, so it's based in the Old West, Old Western United States. It was 1870s, 1880s, and stuff like that. So, but there's space aliens involved in it, and there's, I guess they're body snatching or something like that. So, a lot of different things going on.
And Daniel Craig has that thing on his arm, and he doesn't know, like he's lost his memory, and he doesn't really know what's going on, and he doesn't know why he's got that thing on his arm, and then he starts to figure things out and remember things. So I mean, it's definitely sci-fi fantasy. I don't know if it's horror.
Yeah, I don't know. Definitely sci-fi. I mean, I don't really think it has the horror element.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Is it
Yeah.
primarily has to have that horror element prevalent throughout the piece of work, which it doesn't. It only
Right.
forms
Now,
part of it.
if you take in consider, what was that movie? That other space invasion freaking movie. The hell was it?
Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
No, not that one. It was a recent one.
Oh,
You know, recent with like the last 10, 12 years or so. And
Holy shit!
I
Really?
can't remember the name of it.
what?
What's going on? He just
Oh,
muted
nothing.
himself. Anyway, I forget. It's the one where it's an alien invasion movie, and basically they're taking people's brains.
Okay.
So I can't remember the name of the movie though.
Are you talking about Mars Attacks?
No, not that one. No, no. It'll come to me at some point, but I don't know.
Can you remember who was in it?
I don't. I never saw the whole movie all the way through. Oh, good
Brains.
grief! I just can't remember what the name. But they basically were trying to take over the Earth, and I don't. They were either looking for somebody or something, and they ended up taking over the whole Earth and pretty much killing everybody but one person. So I think that's how it went. But good grief! But they basically were killing people and then taking their brain out and putting it into this machine and trying to gather information. You know, not Starship Troopers but it's something more mechanical. Like there were mechanical aliens, like the Borg, but more computer than Borg.
You know, that sounds familiar, but I don't know if I've seen it.
it kind of sounds like Cyberman.
Skyline was the name of the movie.
Oh wow, have I seen that?
Skyline. That's the name. It just came to me. Skyline.
I have no idea if I've seen that.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, it does. The name rings a bell to me, but I can't remember if I've seen it.
Yeah, it's called Skyline is the name of the movie. I think they did a sequel to it. Well, I don't think the sequel was worth a shit. But you know,
Skylines had a lot of the actors from that TV show with the doctors. That the alien invasion comes in and they're sucking people's brains into those pods. The sequels are sci-fi movies now. Yeah.
Not sure.
I would see that as sci-fi. Skylines would be more like an action sci-fi, like a sci-fi action series.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a very good ending, though. I mean, it's like, you know, it goes like everybody's dead. So it's kind of a depressing, you know.
Well, at the end, one of them. So every time they put a brain into one of those pods, it's kind of like a neuro computer network kind of thing that the mothership controls. Well, at the end of the movie, what happens is one of them malfunctions, and he starts he keeps his consciousness, and he starts looking for people on the ship. He gets off the ship, and to tell you the truth, the sequel to that movie is actually pretty good. For Skyline, but there's actually I think 3 movies for Skyline. But yeah, at the end of it, one of them actually gets out of that neural connection and becomes like a warrior for the people or something. It's pretty interesting, you know.
Definitely interesting.
I thought you were talking about Invasion of the Pod People. I don't know if you guys saw that one on the military installation where people are like pods. I think that's what it was called, Invasion.
Well, that's kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Now, is that sci-fi horror? Because you've got the pod people, like we were just talking about, and they're from outer space, even though it takes place, you know, on Earth, and they're making copies of humans and then replacing them.
I would actually say yes, it is a sci-fi horror because the entire story cannot take place without the sci-fi element.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an intrinsic part of the storyline. So I would class Invasion as a sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
Do you ever
Nice.
find out what their overall purpose was beyond taking over everybody on Earth? But why? For what reason?
I don't think they ever explain it. It's just
It's just propagating various different planets, etc., or is there actually a reason?
I think they said something pertaining to like it always does, sustaining their preservation of self.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they couldn't preserve outside the body, so they had to do it within. I think it was something like that because they did the Daniel Day-Lewis one with what's her name, Nicole Kidman. They had that version, and then they had the I think it was the 70s version with
the original, the 70s.
So they both kind of have different versions. I think the second one explains it more because they kind of do like a neural connection and say why they're doing what they're doing. So,
well, and there's actually 3 versions to that.
Yeah.
There's an original like 50s, 60s version. I think it's 50s, and then there's the classic 70s version with Donald Sutherland.
Yeah.
Which is the one I'm familiar with. And I've never seen the one with Nicole Kidman, just because I can't stand her.
Wasn't hey Cam, wasn't Leonard Nimoy in that movie too?
Yeah,
I think he was.
I think Jeff Goldblum was
in
as well.
Yeah, very young Jeff Goldblum.
And a little nod to Aliens, but Alien rather was Veronica Cartwright was in it in Invasion of the Body Snatchers too.
Oh, nice, good connection.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I just had one. After you said Leonard Nimoy, and wow, it'll come to me. Give me a minute. Damn. Anyway, good. Please continue. I'll try to think of what it was. It just slipped my mind.
Melvin Deeply in the chat says Skyline was directed by the same 2 brothers who directed Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Both good movies, but both got hammered in reviews.
I liked the AVP movies, to be brutally honest.
They
were okay.
Oh,
I liked the first one where you get to find out how you meet the original bishop and they're in like Antarctica, and they find the pyramids. I liked that one. The sequel to that, I didn't care for all that much. But
I remembered what it was, and it was Jeff the mention of Jeff Goldblum that triggered it, and I've got 2. One is The Fly.
Right.
Now, sci-fi horror, I would say definitely.
Yeah, same here.
Yes, that's definitely sci-fi horror,
especially the second one.
Yeah,
I actually like The Fly too. I'm one of those weirdos that likes The Fly too.
It's all right. Yeah, it's not bad. Of course, a very interesting connection between The Fly and.
Oh, wait a minute, gentlemen. We have an announcement here. 69mega.com. If you're looking for love or friends, 69mega.com.
Well,
those guys.
Wookie made the big time. The bots are here.
I know.
The interesting.
I got to figure out how to make people mods.
Yeah, the interesting connection between The Fly with Jeff Goldblum is that was directed by David Cronenberg, and David Cronenberg is actually the first person who dies in Jason X that you showed earlier on, or at least he's one of them. He was also in. He was also in Clive Barker's Nightbreed, if you've ever seen that as well.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good film.
There was an original Fly that had Vincent Price in it, according to
Yes.
And I do remember that because I think I've actually seen that movie.
I've seen it once. It's got David. Was it David Hedison gets turned into the Fly? If I remember.
Yes. Yep.
But the difference is, of course, there's a fly that they're split in two. It's not just one creature. He's
Yeah.
a little fly at the end with a
Yeah.
human head, and he's about to
Yeah.
get eaten by a spider, if I remember.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's
Now,
crazy.
the second Jeff Goldblum one, this may be a reach, but is Jurassic Park a sci-fi horror movie? It's got monsters, it's got science, it's got
creature feature, maybe. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
get eaten. It's definitely
They do,
creature,
huh?
that's for sure. What do you think, Z? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
Jurassic
Technically, it is a sci-fi, but I don't know about horror.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's. I think you're right. It's more of a creature feature.
Sci-fi creature stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Because
think
they
that's
were genetically engineered. You know?
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. No, wrong.
Oh, still
Nah,
good films.
nothing could go wrong.
Nothing bad ever happens. Let's genetically modify these sharks.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that? Deep Blue Sea, yeah?
Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
That was
Now- Now, did you guys talk about that one? I mean, is
No,
we
that
didn't.
sci-fi horror?
that's a good
Well-
question.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
film.
I think that Deep Blue Sea is more like an action horror. I mean, the elements are real. It could be possible that they can genetically modify sharks. I seen them in a tornado, so I mean, they can genetically modify them. That being said, there's some gore elements. There's plenty of, I don't know, and I think it's an action horror. The sci-fi element, it's some in there, but the only sci-fi element they have is something about what is it, extracting something from the
tissue.
brain to
Yeah,
help with
for-
Alzheimer's.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's
Right.
more into like the action horror is the way I would see it, or suspense.
That's a good film.
Yeah, because now you got the sharks trying to eat everybody.
I've not
They're
seen
trying
the
to-
sequel. There's a sequel or a couple of sequels. I've not seen them though.
What's
Yeah,
Jaws?
Jaws, that's the thing. Jaws is not sci-fi.
No.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a horror movie.
It's a
Yeah,
creature,
it's a monster horror movie.
Yeah,
because
I think it's a monster movie.
yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
one.
it is. You got this enormous freaking shark, and yeah, it's definitely not sci-fi. It's definitely horror.
right.
You could classify it as a horror creature,
Yeah.
sure, because that's the main thing that's killing everybody is the shark. So that's the creature.
So where do you guys kind of like classify like the Toxic Crusader or like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes? A lot of those are like Tromaville films. Now, is that comedy or is that horror? Because what do
I
you
haven't
guys
seen
think?
them, so yeah.
Toxic Avenger is definitely horror. I would say not. I mean, he toxic waste turns him into a vengeful, a nerd turned into a vengeful monster.
Yeah.
So it's kind of. I mean, it has a science element to it, but it's mainly a horror comedy, I would say.
Yeah. I'm probably the chance that surely Jaws being made of rubber would make it sci-fi. And he also says the Rocky Horror Picture Show is a musical with sci-fi and horror.
I've seen that once.
He's
I've seen
actually
it once,
right.
I think.
He's right about that.
Yeah, he is.
And
I'm actually I'm a big fan of Rocky Horror. I think it's hilarious.
yeah, it's a funny
I've
movie.
definitely seen that once.
Melvin
Not
Deeply in the chat says that Jurassic Park is a monster movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're monsters that are not common to our current environment. So yeah, it's a creature.
Not that we know of, anyway.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I don't know.
What was I going to say? Have you seen Peter Benchley's Creature?
I have not.
Good film.
It's like a mini series, isn't it? It's set in the Bahamas or somewhere or Brazil or somewhere thereabouts, and it's like a genetically modified shark with human DNA, and It's Gustavo Fring's DNA of all things. So there you go. It's got Kim Cattrall, Craig T. Nelson, Colin Fewer, and obviously, like I said, it's Gustavo Fring himself.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah, one I've heard of, but never seen. Eventually, he's made some great movies, though.
Mm-hmm.
Some great, not the highest budget movies, but some good stories in there.
Well, The Meg, I watched that not long ago. Time Prophet, you're saying that? I got The Meg. That's good.
So.
Yeah, but that's kind of I would classify that as it's a monster movie, right? They go too deep and they go below the lair and they wake something up, and the Meg realizes that there's more above the lair than below the lair to eat, and it decides that it's gonna eat.
Hungry, I want to go to the buffet.
Oh, Creature with William Peterson. I've seen that. Yeah, that's a giant squid or octopus or something. Yeah.
So, Z, I know you got to take off here pretty soon. So what's your thoughts on what makes a sci-fi movie a horror? Is it the gore and horror?
No. It's primarily got to have the horror elements, fear, disgust, repulsion, at the forefront of the movie or piece. But because, as I said, the genres are interchangeable. You can have one without the other. It's just the ones that embrace both. I mean, Fly, perfect example. Love that. That's definitely a high sci-fi horror.
Yeah, The Fly. Yep. Cool. Well, I know you got to take off, and
I do indeed.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for being on, Z. Appreciate it.
It was good to see you again.
Dinner time now. Always a pleasure to be with you guys. So I shall see you on the next one.
Yeah, I'll see you next time, sir.
Bye, everybody. Great to see
you, Z, man. Take it easy, brother.
Have a good one, Z.
Bye.
Bye.
Love that guy, man. What a funny guy that guy is. He really is, and smart, really smart guy.
Yeah,
and fun
guy. So, Time Prophet in the chat says The Meg is horror sci-fi.
It's got gizmos and gadgets and submarines and stuff, but I don't know.
I don't want to say if it's sci-fi. It could be horror suspense. Obviously.
How about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the original with Kirk Douglas?
Yes. Now that one.
Now you're talking.
Now who did that one? Isn't that an H.G. Wells one as well?
The original book, yeah, I believe so. I believe so. I believe he wrote the original book. And I believe the original movie was made by Walt Disney.
It was. It's a Disney, yeah. Because they made an attraction with that theme at the original park in Anaheim. Nice. So they had the voice of
really good film. Really
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, submarines and stuff, which is now, I think they turned it into Nemo.
Oh, yeah.
The Nemo ride. And then who knows what it is now. But yeah, Disney did that. And Peter Lorre was also in that movie too.
Yeah.
And now that you mentioned
Mason,
I was on that ride as a kid.
Me too. I rode it.
I was on it
as a kid and an adult. So yeah, yeah, cool ride, fun time.
You guys are talking about the Nautilus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the one that they did the better Nautilus was the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. What a great boat they did on that one.
That was a good movie. I liked
that. Was all right, yeah. Sean Connery, yes.
That was his last movie.
It was, I know. That's it. It was his last film.
Yep.
Who did he play? It was Quatermain, wasn't it? Alan
Quatermain. Yeah. Alan Quatermain. So, but
it has the sci-fi elements with the whole Nautilus, and everything, and the the advanced technology that what's his name, the sharpshooter and Alan Quartermain and but
Does it have that horror element?
No, it's not.
No,
horror.
I don't think so.
I mean,
no,
yeah,
it's
you do have the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde element, but
yes,
it's not really horror. It's more
sci-fi action, maybe. I don't
sci-fi,
know.
like action. Yeah, it's definitely science
Yeah.
fiction because you're bringing several different characters who are all fictional, by the way,
Mhm.
together, and
well,
it
well,
has science elements in it. So it could be a science fantasy, maybe,
Mhm.
science fantasy. So it's actually science fiction. So I don't know.
No, I think you're right. Even with the Dorian Gray aspect, I think it's it's more of a sci-fi fantasy kind
And
of movie.
you have Harker's wife.
Yeah, the
know,
vampire.
Right.
Yeah.
the vampire
she's a
chick.
vampire.
Yeah, she's the vampire, but it's not like there's it's just you have that interesting character, but it's not like a horror type scenario.
Right.
It's not like
Yeah,
you said
yeah, yeah.
Lust and revulsion and things like that, where you have it's not horror. It's more like I said, it's more like a science fantasy type of deal.
Gotcha.
So that's just my opinion. So
No, I'd have to agree with you. I'm not sure what the other guys think, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for many years, but it was okay. Yeah.
Melvin Deeply says in the chat at the time, Prophet, The Deep was a good film. I don't remember The Deep.
Is that the one with Louis Gossett Jr. and was it Nick Nolte?
Oh, I can't. It's been so long since I've seen it.
So there was two movies that take place at the bottom of the ocean. One of them was
The Abyss.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's a good
But there
one.
was another one that was made about the same time. It was called Leviathan.
Okay.
And the Leviathan had Welker in it. The guy RoboCop.
It had
Right.
Troutman as
Yeah.
well, wasn't it? Troutman.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Peter Walker.
Yeah, Peter Welker was definitely in it. But
Interesting
Robert
side note. He's actually a professor at Syracuse University of professor of history.
Yeah.
Especially like military history, apparently.
Yeah. I've seen him on a couple of History Channel or documentaries about like Thermopylae and all this other stuff, over there. And stuff like that. So loved his character in freaking Longmire series. Holy shit. He played that character Lucian, who was Longmire's old boss as a sheriff, and now he's like all retired and living in a home. He is a great freaking character. But anyway, that movie, The Abyss, was more like a science fiction in that they discover a sunken ship or an abandoned underwater. There's an abandoned underwater base that they find or something, and ends up it's like a undersea laboratory, like the Russians had it or something like that, and they find and they have their own little science base, and so apparently they find out that there's some kind of parasite or something that they were working on, and it ends up killing everybody. So it's kind of like a horror movie underwater. Like maybe it could be a sci-fi horror, that one, because it's more like a worm type thing that's killing people.
It mutates and stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does some pretty horrendous,
It's
stuff.
been a long time. I think there was actually a third film that was out around about that time as well, Deep Star 6.
Yeah, Deep Star. Well, that was I think before that, wasn't it?
Was it before? Was it?
Yeah, I think it was before that. Yeah,
Similar.
Deep Star. That had didn't that have oh good God. what's his name that played Kwai Chang Kane?
David Carradine.
David Carradine, wasn't he in that Deep Star 6?
I forget, but it's got.
I thought he
It's
was
not
in
got-
that.
Is it not got? I've forgotten the actor's name, but he played Bob Morton in RoboCop. I think he's in that.
Okay.
Because if I remember correctly, he tries to escape and he goes up in the escape pod too fast and basically
Oh, yeah.
decompresses.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I got one. I can't think of the name of it, but I'm pretty sure it had Jake Gyllenhaal in it, right? And they're in space, and there's like some kind of black ooze, and they don't want it to get back to Earth because it'll kill everyone. You know, it'll take over, and it's like almost like a parasite.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
Does that sound
like
familiar to anyone?
it just sounds like the black goo from the X-Files or something.
Possibly, yeah. The Time Prophet in the chat says, this stream is like a horror movie. I mean, we have a scary, hairy Wookiee in charge of it.
Hey, that movie's called Life.
Ah!
All right.
The Jake Gyllenhaal movie. That movie's
Life.
called Life.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
the movie that you guys, you're talking about movies of that style. One that I remember was Virus with Jamie Lee Curtis and I think it was
I've never seen it.
Alec Baldwin.
Donald
where
Sutherland as well, wasn't it?
it's an electrical creature. An electrical creature gets into this satellite, into this ship where it has a bunch of satellites, and it's stuck there. So what it does, it convinces a crew, a salvage crew. It has oh goddamn, what's his name? The same actor that was in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Donald Sutherland. Yeah.
Donald Sutherland. Okay, he's in it as a ship captain, and Jamie Lee Curtis is his navigator.
I've not seen it.
They get onto this ship, and their ship is sunk. And so what the computer starts doing is changing their bodies into electrical components of the ship.
They become like Borg, don't they? Some of them become
yeah,
like
they
Borg.
do. Yeah,
I've
they
seen
kind of become
reviews.
Borg.
I've seen reviews for it.
All they're trying to do is get to shore to get their signal out so they can take over the world.
Nice.
As usual.
So yeah, it's always something. Yeah, but if you guys
I've
have a
not
chance
seen
to
it.
watch that,
I've not
it's
seen
a
it, but
great movie.
I've seen reviews for it.
Kind of like
footage
around
of
the
it.
same time that Deep Blue Sea came around. Not Deep Blue Sea. I mean Deep Rising. If you guys have seen.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wish I had that on DVD still. Deep Rising. That was a good one. Treat Willie.
Yeah, you know what? A Time Prophet here, he says the 20,000 Leagues is H.G. Wells and is more gothic sci-fi. It's really more steampunk, but Melvin Deeply says that wasn't it Jules Verne?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah,
Jules
Verne
You're
was,
right.
20,000
You're right.
Leagues Under the Sea. H.G. Wells was War of the Worlds and
Time Machine.
other stuff, Time Machine, stuff like that. Yeah,
Jules
Jules
Verne.
Verne. That's what it was.
Time Machine. Yeah.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Good call, Melvin.
Yeah. Peter Lorre was also in The Hand when his hand haunts him. The Hand.
Okay. The Hand.
Time Pump in the chat says that Melvin Deeply. Yes, you are right. Always get them mixed up.
Well, there's like a horror, almost comedy, but it has some sci-fi elements in it. It has Seth Green in it, and it's like him and his buddy on Halloween, and like his hand becomes possessed, so they end up cutting it off, and it starts running around killing people.
Idle Hands.
Idle Hands with Jessica Biel.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that's horror, probably not sci-fi, but just the whole hand talk that brought it to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Time Prophet in the chat says Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is horror. Yeah, it's definitely got some horror elements. There's no question. He drinks some kind of an elixir. It changes his body, changes him into the monster or the creature. Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is 1886 Gothic novella by Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson. Yeah. He also says it was also a Hammer movie, which specializes in horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you guys talk? I mean, about Frankenstein? Now, is Frankenstein a horror movie with science elements to it, or is it just a horror movie?
Say it's a
Well, it was originally
A
a
monster.
horror, wasn't it?
well, it's originally a horror movie. I mean, really, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a horror movie. Some guy puts together, a bunch of different body parts, and the creature comes alive and goes out and rampages and kills and whatever. But he uses science. So is it science fiction horror or is it science fantasy horror?
Hmm.
Because I
would
don't
say-
really think at the time that book was written, they had the concept of science fiction.
No, I suppose not.
It was, and I guess it was just made as a horror
Yeah.
based around.
I would say science fantasy, because at the
Yeah.
time, electricity was new back
Yeah.
then in the 1800s.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Melvin Deeply in the chat says the Deep was Robert Shaw and Nick Nolte.
Yeah, that's
the
right, yeah.
book.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah.
But isn't it strange how these movies, a lot of them, they come out in twos, like with similar concepts and similar ideas. They're and does that happen organically, or do you think one studio finds out what the other one's doing and decides they need to do the same kind of thing?
All right. Who's got the ragtime music playing there?
Yeah, well, I figure since we're talking about silent era movies,
Well, you'll get me demonetized.
it's you
I'm
can
not
clip it out.
monetized,
I was
you
trying
know,
to pep it up. All right,
No, I
let's
hear
go
you.
back to quiet.
Time Prophet in the chat says that Wookie Fever presents Jennifer Lawrence was the first to make a horror movie. Yeah. Yeah. She was to make a horror
Well,
movie.
she was the first woman in film.
Oh, yes, she was.
What? She was the first
the
one to make a
first.
horrible movie. A
She
horrible
was the
movie.
first. Yeah. She was the first. Time Prophet. Gotta love this guy. Wookie Fever's icon is Scooby Doo with a beard. LOL. No, it's not Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo has a long snout. Ruh-roh, Braggy. You're wrong, Time Prophet. You're wrong. Oh, my God.
I think that's a pretty sweet icon, by the way.
Yeah,
Yes, that's cool.
yeah. Good old Wolfie from the Groovy Ghoulies. Oh yeah, here we go. Time purposes, I got the movie Virus.
I've not seen it, but I've seen reviews and clips of it. So
Yeah.
that's how I knew.
Melvin
Don
Deeply
Southern.
says it was a good movie.
Yeah.
He
Well,
says he loved
what
it.
about movies like 28 Days Later?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah,
Very freaky,
Or-
deaky.
30 Days of Night.
That's horror,
That-
isn't it?
That one, yeah, that's
That's
horror
hard.
right there.
That's straight up horror because they're vampires and it's 30
Yeah.
days a night at that point, and
Pretty much.
30 night it's a winter, so the sun doesn't come up, so they're out to have a little bit of fun.
Oh
and
yeah.
eat everything in sight. It's a good film.
Yep.
I've only seen it once or twice. I think there is a sequel actually, but I haven't seen that.
There is not as good as the first one.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
Melvin Deeply in the chat has a little fun fact. Useless fact: R.L. Stevenson was addicted to laudanum. He wrote Jekyll and Hyde in one session when he was high. Oh, what's his name? George Carlin said that was when he'd get his best jokes, he'd start writing. He got, had a little marijuana, and then woo, there we go.
a little smoke to get the old synapses firing.
Yeah, laudanum. No, laudanum is a derivative of morphine. Laudanum and morphine come from the poppy plant. They're both from it.
Oh wow,
I
didn't know
think.
that.
Yeah. Laudanum was the beginning, and then they hit morphine, and it's like they forgot all about laudanum.
Oh.
Well, laudanum was touted as like a cure all for
Yes, it was.
They were giving it to housewives for migraines and PMS, and they were getting hooked on the stuff.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All of that was came from
there's a
poppy. Yeah, the opium. Yep. Crazy.
Yeah, the opium trade. The opium trade. They used to call it the triangle between England, from England, to India to get to opium. They would trade, their goods that they had in England, wool and whatnot, to the Indians. The Indians would trade them the opium. Then they would take the opium to China, and they would sell the opium to the Chinese for silver, and then and it went around in a triangle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which was part of the reason that they tried to kick all the foreigners out of China.
Yeah. Amazing how commerce worked back in the day.
Right.
Let's
It was illegal to sell, any type of narcotic in England, but if you wanted to sell it to the Chinese, please have at it.
Yeah, there you go. What does he say here?
All the Western nations were involved in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
not just the British. The British were just the best at it.
They probably still are. Let's be honest.
So in the chat, Melvin Deeply says Stevenson also wrote Treasure Island.
I watched that the other day.
Yep, I have that. The term science fantasy wasn't coined until the 80s, and really is all science fiction, according to the Time Prophet. Melvin Deeply also asks, what about Deep Rising?
Oh, we spoke about that for about 2 seconds.
Yeah. Deep Rising. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Time Prophet here with another fun fact. They used to have opium dens in London. No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also says it used to be legal. I believe that. I believe that.
Well, I mean, it's just like, cocaine used to be legal here in America. You could go to your pharmacy and buy cocaine.
Yeah.
That's what made Coca-Cola so popular with everybody.
Right.
Oh,
right. Take the cocaine out of it and add caffeine.
Well, and famously, Sherlock Holmes was a cocaine addict.
Yeah, in the novels. Yep. Yep. It touched on it a couple of times with the Basil Rathbone movies. Slightly. I mean, it's just like an inference, but.
Well, if you watch the series Elementary, he's a reformed junkie in that one.
Yeah.
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 And he does fall off the wagon a few times.
I don't know. I never watched the series with Jeremy Brad in it.
Yeah, that was all right.
I never watched that. I don't know if they touched on that, but I know in the TV series back in the 50s, the Ronald Howard who played Sherlock Holmes, they never touched on any of that I know of. They had him doing a lot of scientific stuff. Almost every opening scene of the series that they did, he'd be doing some kind of lab experiment, some craziness, but it was nothing was even inferred of drug use in that series. So good series, by the way. I love the actors. I love the guy who played freaking Watson. That's a guy right there, that actor. I forget his name, but in that series, he was a rough and tumble Watson. That's for sure. He wasn't like Nigel Bruce Watson.
But he wasn't a bumbler.
No, he was a boxer.
Right.
He was a bruiser. He was like, if he didn't like the argument, he'd take his jacket off and put his fists up. He was like, no. You guys got to watch that series with. It's called The New Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. It was a TV series. You can find it on YouTube.
No, is that the one with Jeremy Brett?
No, it's not. It's not that. It's not the ones in the 80s. This is from the 19. This is either the late 1950s or early 1960s, and it's in black and white. And it was on British television. You can find it. It depends on where you find it. They'll depend on the quality. But it can be kind of grainy at times, just because. But the actors are great. The guy that plays Lestrade is funny. Good guy. But yeah, this good show. Good mysteries. They're about 30 minutes ish. You know, they were TV series, so roughly about 25 to 30 minutes long episodes.
And along these lines, and kind of to bring it back, there's a movie that involves both H.G. Wells' Time Machine and Jack the Ripper called Out of Time.
Yes, I remember that. And didn't Malcolm McDowell play a role in that? Wasn't he the?
Yeah,
Malcolm
he was.
McDowell was in that.
That sounds familiar, actually. Now
Yeah, he was H.G. Wells, and the other guy he was a mainstay, almost a star, but more of a character actor, and he played the Ripper.
Yeah, I don't remember who did. I remember. Yeah, I remember. Malcolm McDowell in it, but I don't remember who played the Ripper part. So it seems like a fun premise, though. Fun premise.
But I mean, that has the elements of sci-fi with the whole time travel thing, and then it has the horror elements with Jack the Ripper.
Right. And didn't they use a time machine and to get to, at the time of the movie, modern, the present day, setting of when that movie was made? Like, wasn't it like New York or something like that?
Yeah, I want to say San Francisco, but
Okay.
I could be wrong. But yeah, they go from. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that they go from like the 1800s to the 70s, to what would have been the present time of when the movie was made.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say I wasn't sure if it was the late 70s or early 80s. But yeah, it was definitely somewhere in the United States. Either city, like I thought it was New York, but yeah, San Francisco could make sense too. So, but yeah, that was an interesting movie.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it has those sci-fi elements with the whole time travel and everything, and then you've also got the horror element of Jack the Ripper, who's going around, murdering people in London, and then figures out he can hop in this time machine and go somewhere into the future and continue killing because he thinks that they're gonna catch up to him, if he stays in London.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Time Prophet in the chat says, is Cocaine Bear science fiction or horror? I think the actual story, it's based on an actual story, but the bear didn't make it. I think he died in about 15 minutes. I think the actual story was that the bear, OD'd on the cocaine and was dead within 15-20 minutes. So yeah, it actually looks like it's like a horror comedy myself, but
Yeah, I would definitely put that in the horror comedy. in the horror comedy class. You
I saw
know,
a trailer.
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Sherlock Holmes.
a little too much Bolivian marching powder, it'll catch up to you.
Exactly. Yeah, Time Prophet in the chat says Sherlock Holmes takes cocaine with Jeremy Brett. Yeah, okay. Jeremy Brett has a syringe he always carries in Sherlock Holmes. Really? Okay, cool. I know they touched on that with the movie with Downey Jr. in it. Yeah.
All right, I've not seen those.
Melvin Deeply in the chat says there's a film about Holmes' drug use, The 7% Solution. Nicole Williamson played Holmes.
Huh.
Time
I'm
from the
sure
chat says I like to
I've
call
seen
play Merlin.
Is that from Excalibur? Is it? I think it's Excalibur, isn't it?
Yeah, for Merlin.
Yeah.
I don't know who that actor is.
So he was the guy that was helping out Spawn in the movie Cagliostro. That guy.
Oh, really? Oh,
and
okay.
he was also a priest. He was also a priest in The Exorcist 3, if I remember.
Nice.
Oh, that's great. He was the old priest, right?
In The Exorcist 3.
Here we go.
Yeah.
The chat says the movie was called Time After Time, 1979. That's
okay.
Yeah. There is a movie called Out of Time, though, isn't there?
Yes, because I was just looking at it just now. It was 1988.
Yeah. Okay.
I was thinking it sounded different to what.
Yeah, and I conflated the names. Out of Time is the one with Christopher Reeves, right? Or Christopher Reeve, where he somehow he manages to travel back in time. He sees a picture of this woman and he falls in love, and he's able to travel back in time or something like that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I remember. I never watched that movie, but I remember seeing reviews and clips of it and stuff in the past. I never watched it. Never did. Well, gentlemen, I think I'm going to call it a day. It's lunchtime here, and I think we had a really good.
Right.
I think we had a really good stream here. A lot of interaction
with
the chat and discussion. So basically, we'll just go around the horn here. So the question is, what makes a sci-fi movie a horror movie, and vice versa? And we'll start with Cam. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to frame it this way. Alien is the perfect horror sci-fi movie. It's got your science fiction, your outer space, people working in outer space. They encounter something they don't understand that turns into a monster, and the monster goes around killing people.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to fight it, and they're never sure when or who's going to get it next.
Yeah, it has that element that Z touched on of having the repulsion, the scariness, the gore, the things like that are a whole what a horror movie is, coupled with science fiction element of it.
Exactly, and the horror, is in the forefront. You're always on the edge of your seat. You're always wondering, who's next, who's going to get it, what's going to happen, and you also have the science element of, they're in space, there's nowhere to go, and if the thing gets, off the space station or off the ship and gets to Earth, the world's over. You know what I mean? So I think Alien combines all of those elements of both horror and sci-fi just so well together.
Yeah, absolutely. Cruel, what's your thoughts?
What makes a science fiction movie into a horror movie? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Ryan Johnson. There you go.
I agree.
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree.
Science fiction. I mean, what makes a science? Again, it's just whichever one of the two you're looking at. It's just whether it incorporates elements of horror or elements of sci-fi, whether it's time travel, whether it's aliens or something like that, or spooky stuff that's in space. It's just one of them things. Alien, again, is just one of those sort of examples that a lot of people return to when they think of a good movie that falls into that category, and I tend to agree. It's just one of those ones. And I suppose Aliens, being the sequel to that, does still have elements of horror and sci-fi, obviously, but there's a bit more action than that. So
definitely.
So good. So good.
Willie, are you with us?
Yeah.
What do you think?
The way that I see it, I agree with the way that Z sees it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I mirror that too. It's got to have that something to be both crossover for sci-fi horrors. You've got to have that element of disgust and revulsion and fear and things like that to give it that. If it's just like, okay, well, someone died, but that's it, and it's like an accident or something, that's not really horror.
Slipped a banana peel in space.
Yeah, you gotta shoot a leprechaun in a rocket to Mars and then have him go on a rampage, I guess. But so I'd say we had a very good stream today.
Yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it.
Gentlemen, yeah, I had a good time with it. Really enjoyed having Z on.
Yeah, it's been a while.
A lot of great people participating in the chat. Time Prophet, of course, Melvin Deeply. We got Eccentric. I think it's his first time in my chats. I think Bridget Moore stopped by.
Yeah, very briefly,
to say hello and goodbye. Let's see who else was in here. Mostly Melvin and the Time Prophet, which is fine. That's awesome. Eccentric.
I'd just like to say, hey, Time Prophet, man, I always appreciate your jokes about my proclivity for crashing, and Melvin Deeply, great points, great pull with the Jules Verne, and always good to see you.
Yeah.
Always good to see you in the chat here and at Mr. Brown and other places. And Time Prophet, always a pleasure to see you, brother. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Yeah, Papa Cotton. Cotton was also in the chat there early on. Yeah, Papa Cotton. And I don't know if I'm forgetting anybody that was also in the chat. I'm scrolling up right now to see is totally dominated by the Time Prophet and the 69 mega comms. Yeah, whatever.
Thank you. Thank you for our validation. We have arrived.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The trolls have found us today. Well, if I missed somebody in the chat, I apologize. Mr. Brown was there. He came by for a few minutes at the start of the.
Thanks for popping in, Mr. Brown.
And again, Mr. Bridget Moore was in there. Thank you again. So great stream, everybody. Thanks everybody for coming out and coming in the chat and also watching. We've got about 6 people watching right now, and I know there's a lot less than that in the chat. So, but I want to say thank you to my panel and guests. Thank you to Z coming by. We really appreciate him coming by today. And just a little announcement. Next week, we'll have a paranormal stream on Friday at the same time, 5 p.m. UK and 10 a.m. here. And we're going to have a couple of guests. We're going to have Belmont Comics and T Bunny from what is it? It's not Hypnotic Buddy, is it? It's a bunny. It's something else. I don't want to butcher his site, but
Telepathic bunny.
Telepathic. I get Hypnotic and Telepath. So it's Telepathic Bunny Comics, his channel, and himself, T Bunny, and Belmont will be on, and we'll be discussing some paranormal things. Since I'm not really going to do a stream on Saturday because it's Christmas Eve, and everybody's going to be busy doing stuff with family and stuff like that. And Christmas is Friday, or Sunday. So we're going to do something different. Like I said, paranormal stuff. So cryptid, Bigfoot, whatever the stories we come up with. But those two guys, that's in their wheelhouse because they do have a segment called Cannabis and Conspiracies. And it's mostly on things like that. Just the weird, unexplained type of stuff. It's one of his shows on Telepathic Bunny. So, and they're comic book guys. And they're comic book guys. So look forward to having them here. So, anyway, we will.
That sounds awesome. I'll be sure not to miss it as long as we don't get another snowstorm.
Right.
And I'd just like to say, hey, thanks very much for inviting me on. I'm sorry I couldn't get on earlier. It's been a real pleasure to hang out with you, gentlemen. Crual, Willie, man, you guys are fabulous. Great discussion today. Lots of great thoughts for everybody, man, and really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man, I always love having you on, Cam, when I can. So, great. I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat, everybody watching at home, my great guest panel, and we will see you guys hopefully next Friday at the same time. We'll be talking paranormal stuff. So everybody have a great weekend, rest of your weekend, and a great week. And we will see you